I'm Sister Compton, and I will be your teacher for History 120, History of the United States to 1865. I'm so excited to have you in the class and for us to learn about American history together. Although we're going to be studying although the title says the history of the United States, we're actually going to begin our studies well before the formation of the nation. We're going to look at the indigenous peoples and their civilizations and move through the colonial period into the nation's building state and finally end with the American Civil War. As we study this, we're going to look at four main themes, and it would be good to write these themes down. You'll find them very helpful in organizing and making sense of the history in readings that might initially seem overwhelming. The four themes are: we're going to look at 1, interactions between indigenous Americans and European settlers; 2, competition between colonial powers; 3, an economy based on slavery; and 4, the development of a unique American idea and system of democracy. The first theme, interactions between indigenous Americans and European settlers, from our vantage point today might look as if it was inevitable that the European settlers would dominate and win this conflict. But this was not initially the case. It was not initially apparent who was going to dominate or win. Indigenous peoples actively resisted the incursions of Euro-Americans, Europeans, and at times were wildly successful in their resistance. Theme number 2, the competition between colonial powers. European nations came to colonize the Americas. The British in the Northeast and Chesapeake, the French in the interior, northern interior, and the Spanish in the tropical Southeast and desert Southwest. Each of them used various strategies to try and dominate, and often they would try to ally themselves with indigenous peoples, and the indigenous people were actually quite adept at playing the colonial powers off of one another. So it's important to not look at this time period as primarily British. It was actually fairly cosmopolitan, with many different peoples vying for power, including the Iroquois, Huron, Navajo, Apache, as well as French, British, and Spanish. Our third theme is an economy based on slavery. Between 1700 and 1830, millions of Africans were shipped to the North American continent and sold into chattel slavery. And by chattel slavery, what I mean is that they were wholly owned. They were seen as property to be owned from the beginning of their lives till their deaths, and that their children would be born into slavery. This created conflicts and tensions, particularly between the industrializing North with their free labor, and by free labor, what was meant by that was not slave labor, and the agricultural South with its slave labor. The tensions between these regions over slavery were difficult to resolve and eventually erupted into the Civil War. Our fourth and final theme is the development of a unique American idea and system of democracy. This democracy, the development of democracy was informed by the Enlightenment and tempered by cultural sensibilities. The peoples in the North America increasingly grew to dislike hierarchy and to embrace the ideas and practices of equality. Another thing that they began to develop was the sense of the primacy of the individual. These ideas evolved into political practices and a set of ideals that began to seep into economic and cultural spaces. Obviously, we can't fit everything that happened in the United States and its colonial period in this short semester. But these themes will help you to organize and to remember the things to look for, questions to ask, and hopefully will inspire you to continue studying American history even after this course. I look forward to getting to know you and studying with you. Thank you.